Welcome to today's explainer. We're going to completely demystify the quantum physics and the engineering behind the Imagenta MedTech v3.0 platform. We're talking about a system that literally transitions the entire concept of surgery from physical blades right over to pure light. So to kick things off, I want to ask you a question. It's a provocative one, but it completely redefines the modern operating room. What if deep tissue surgery required 0 incisions? Just imagine being able to reach a tumor deep inside the body without ever breaking the skin. Sounds like sci-fi, right? But it's not. Let's dive right into this by sharply contrasting the costly, invasive reality of traditional inpatient surgeries with the incredibly rapid, non-invasive promise of Imagenta's outpatient multiphoton procedures. Traditional methods, they require invasive tools that just inherently damage healthy tissue, and that leads to long, super expensive recoveries. Imagenta flips this whole model on its head. It uses light to achieve sub-cellular precision with unprecedented rapid recovery times. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the invasive surgery problem. Second, the quantum light scalpel. Then, Imagenta v3.0 architectural upgrades, followed by AI tracking and precision ablation, and finally, transforming the clinical ROI. Okay, part 1. The invasive surgery problem, the bottleneck of blades. Let's look at the very real macroscopic problem that's draining healthcare systems all over the globe. Traditional surgeries, especially in oncology, they're inherently invasive. Cutting through healthy anatomy to get to a tumor inevitably causes collateral tissue damage. And that damage is exactly what forces patients into exorbitant overnight hospital stays for observation and recovery, which, you guessed it, drastically slows down hospital patient throughput. It's an absolute bottleneck, both economically and clinically. Moving on to part 2, the quantum light scalpel, physics over physical incisions. Now, what's genuinely fascinating here is how we solve that macroscopic problem by zooming way, way down to the sub-cellular quantum level, to actually cut without cutting. The absolute crux of this is multiphoton absorption. Unlike a standard continuous laser that just burns everything in its path, this relies on a totally non-linear quantum process. Literally, 2 low-energy photons have to arrive at the exact same time, we're talking within a fraction of a femtosecond, to trigger absorption. Since this probability completely relies on peak intensity, the energy deposition is confined strictly to an absolute microscopic focal point. It perfectly spares all the healthy tissue it passes through to get there. It's brilliant. And the foundation of this technology relies on a super clever decoupled architecture. A heavy base console handles all the liquid cooling and laser pre-chirping, and then it sends the beam through a specialized, zero-dispersion hollow core umbilical cable. So what does that actually mean? It means all the heavy lifting is kept far, far away from the patient while delivering perfect quantum pulses right to a really lightweight robot-mounted end effector. All right, part 3, Imagenta v3.0, architectural upgrades, the 4 pillars. So v3.0 completely upgrades the previous tech with 4 unified pillars: hybrid MEMS and AOD beam steering, adaptive optics, burst mode femtosecond ablation, and AI motion compensation. Together, these are what transform the whole system from kind of an isolated optics experiment into a truly robust, retrofittable oncology tool that works in the real world. Let's break these down. To solve the scanning speed problem, think of the new hybrid MEMS and solid-state AOD beam steering like a highly coordinated search and rescue mission. The MEMS mirror acts like the helicopter, right? It's up there doing these broad, macroscopic sweeps of the tissue. Once the target is found, the solid-state Acousto-Optic Deflector array steps in. It basically acts like a sniper scope, locking on for ultrafast, completely inertialess sub-cellular micropositioning. Game changer. But look, we all know biological tissue isn't perfectly transparent. It scatters light. So to handle this really complex refractive nature, v3.0 uses a super smart 3-step adaptive optics process. First up, optical coherence tomography, or OCT, senses exactly how the tissue is bending the light. Second, spatial light modulators calculate the exact inverse wave needed to fix it. And finally, a perfect diffraction-limited focus is dynamically restored deep inside that scattering tissue. Once we've got that perfect focus, we still have to ablate the tumor safely. So the crucial component here is burst mode femtosecond ablation. Instead of just blasting the tissue with one huge high-energy pulse, which, by the way, causes really dangerous thermal shock and cavitation, v3.0 uses highly programmable trains of much smaller pulses. This isn't just a cool physics trick. It is an absolutely critical safety feature that protects the surrounding healthy organs during the intervention. Okay, part 4,
AI tracking and precision ablation, the lock-on targeting system.
Obviously, biological tissue is not static. And that brings us to the platform's frankly incredible ability to handle movement during a live operation. By integrating AI motion compensation, the system essentially acts like a smart lock-on targeting system. It tracks the tissue in real time using OCT, and it actually predicts and adjusts for the patient's breathing and heartbeats. And because that AOD beam steering we talked about has literally zero moving parts, it can reposition the focal point in microseconds. It stays perfectly locked onto the tumor, even while the patient is just naturally breathing on the table. This level of dynamic stability is what ultimately allows the surgeon to seamlessly switch between two modes. First, there's a really safe diagnostic imaging mode that basically maps out metabolic tumor margins using natural tissue fluorescence. Then, they can instantly switch into ablation mode for active, ultra-precise oncological intervention, complete with all the necessary surgical safety interlocks. And that brings us to part 5, transforming the clinical ROI, the economic engine. Now let's zoom all the way back out to the macroscopic level and look at why this really matters for hospital procurement officers and healthcare administrators. We are talking about disrupting a massive, massive sector. Specifically, the radiation oncology and planning market, which is currently forecasted to reach an absolutely staggering £33.34 billion by the year 2035. The economic implications of faster, safer surgeries in this space, there are literally immense. And the unparalleled clinical ROI here is driven precisely by that decoupled architecture we explored earlier. Listen to this. Hospitals do not need to throw out their existing multi-million-dollar surgical robots or microscopes. They just don't. The lightweight V3.0 endosector simply retrofits right onto their current infrastructure. This saves facilities absolutely millions in full system replacement costs, while instantly upgrading their clinical capabilities. As it's perfectly highlighted in the V3.0 white paper, the foundational principle of V3.0 is decoupled systems integration. It's exactly this integration that finally empowers hospitals to convert these highly complex, costly inpatient surgeries that demand overnight stays into high-throughput, highly profitable outpatient procedures. It's a total paradigm shift. Which leaves us with a pretty profound final thought on this incredible convergence of quantum physics, AI, and medical economics. The technology to operate with light, entirely without incisions, is here today. The clinical ROI is just undeniable. So the real question is your hospital ready for the era of photonic surgery? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it illuminated this fascinating topic for you.